Well, it's that time of year again. Mr. Manius, would you like to begin the festivities?
Yes, I want to ask the clerk to call the roll real quick.
Why don't we want to do that? Everybody knows we're here. Go right ahead, ladies.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Now, thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, members of the court. Well, Judge Whitley is absolutely correct. It's that time of year again, and let me just make a few comments before we get into our PowerPoint. This is the beginning of the process. It's not the end of the process. It's going to be something where that you will hear our recommendations, you'll hear comments from various departments, and then over the next month or so, we will be working with the departments and with the courts to help, craft a recommended budget that eventually will be presented to the Commissioner's Court on September 13th. And you'll see a slide in our slide packet in just a second as it relates to that. But that is going to be the point where that we will go ahead and adopt the budget, approve other elements that Ms. Snyder will talk about, and then also set the tax rate. So with that, members of the court, if we can go ahead and go into the PowerPoint and talk a little bit about taxable values. It would be an understatement to say basically that Tarrant County is in an enviable position as it relates to our economy. Our economy continues to grow and our unemployment rate remains very stable. In fact, the latest report that I heard the other night was that Tarrant County's unemployment rate was lower than the state's unemployment rate, and the state's unemployment rate was lower than the federal unemployment rate. So we do live in a very diverse and healthy economy, and it has proven to be something that not only adds to our tax values, but it also creates jobs for our citizens. What we saw on the tax roll this year was that our net taxable value. Now this is the July 25th roll, and these numbers, except for 2016, are the September 1st rolls. Our July 25th roll, which is the roll that we, by law, set our tax rates on, our value has gone up to $154,825,000,000. That represents approximately 9.6% increase in values from last year's September roll. One of the areas that we have not seen an increase in has been minerals. Our mineral lease properties have decreased substantially, which should not be a surprise to very many people when you look at the price of oil and gas, and that drives those type of appraisals. In fact, if you look at the 2016 versus the 2015, we are down 65% in the values of our minerals. Our minerals today, for a very long time, since before 2007, have been less than $1 billion. And when you factor in $1 billion, is a lot of money, obviously, but when you factor it on a tax base of $154 billion, it is not that substantial. However, it's to be noted that last year we had about $2.5 billion in value. This year we have $907 million in value. Our tax rate, since 2007, our tax rate has held steady at 0.264. This has allowed for us to have adequate funds to maintain a constant level of services for our citizens. Because of the improvement of the increase in the value of the ad valorem rate, staff is recommending that we decrease the tax rate this year, the overall tax rate, from 0.264 to 0.254, which is a penny's worth, which is about 3.8% decrease in our tax roll. There was Your Honor, you had a great comment in the paper yesterday as it related to the taxes, and that we are giving about 50% of the gain in value, in taxes and value, back to our citizens, which I think is an excellent comment.
Well, another thing I would point out is in these years where we've kept it the same, the average annual increase in an existing home, the tax or the increase in value has been less than 1%. And on commercial property, it's been less than 2%. So, you know, the existing home values have not been going up in these years where we kept the tax rate. Well, they have been going up, but they've been going up on average by only about 1%, or really less than 1%.
So when you look at our current tax year, which is current tax year is tax year 2015, and you compare that with the other 6 or the other 5 large counties in the state, we have the second lowest tax rate as it compares to just general tax rates for counties. If you factor in the tax rate for the hospital district, you'll find that we will have the lowest tax rate of all 6 counties. New construction values. New construction has increased. And as you see in the bar chart, we continue to go up. This is an economy or an environment where that we have more people moving into Tarrant County, and we see that we have new commercial construction and new residential construction. In 2015, we had a growth of about 2.3%. In 2016, the year that we're about to move into, these are tax years, that has increased to $2.4 billion in new construction value. When you look at the average single-family home value, what you're going to find is that there has been a significant increase. This is something that Judge Woodley just mentioned. There's various factors that cause something like this. You know, I know that we've had some concerns as far as the values coming from TAD and when our homes have been appraised. But also, if you read the economic forecasts and descriptions of what's happening in Tarrant County, there continues to be a housing shortage of new homes to be sold, and it's a element of supply and demand. And so you see the value of homes going up, and that's reflected in the home value. Utilizing the 0.254 value, we estimate that the added taxes to an existing single-family home is going to be about $29 a year. So when you look at our tax rates, you can see pretty much what we've been talking about and how it looks at the average tax bill. See our current rate, if we were to still utilize the 0.264 with the new values, it would be about $444 per single-family home value average. Our proposed rate will take that down to $427. So the procedures that we'd like to do today are the same procedures that we have done in the past. We're going to ask you to take a vote on every budget. If you want that amount included in the final budget, you will vote yes. If you do not want any further consideration about a particular item, then that vote will be no. If there are elements that we discussed today and information that you hear from departments and for additional requests that you want us to do research on to bring back or you need additional information, then we would ask that you vote to be continued. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Snyder. I do want to make one point before I do turn it over to her. I'm sorry, to the auditor. The budget that we have prepared for you is one that is balanced. And a lot of work has gone into that, and I'd like to recognize just a very few people in court and their departments that have helped us. Obviously, the budget director and the budget department has worked very hard on this. Ms. Tidwell, you and your office have assisted us greatly on the revenue forecast. Ms. Glenn, as it relates to HR, you have once again done a great job. And I'd also like to recognize our staff, because our staff has worked diligently with all the departments in trying to bring to you a budget that we believe will satisfy the needs of our citizens and still maintain an acceptable tax rate. And with that, I'm going to ask Ms. Tidwell to come forward.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Let's see. Okay. We'll start with the slide in order as they are in your book, but we'll talk about the detail and the changes on the next slide. I would make one comment on this slide. When you see down there at the bottom the $381 million for the taxes, as Mr. Manius talked about the increases and the changes in the tax value, I feel like I have to say this morning that, as you're aware, TAD's new system and the issues that we've had with that system did cause me some concern related to what these numbers should be this year. It's always a crystal ball to figure out how to forecast what the revenue is going to be. We're going to be bringing a report back to court in a couple of weeks. It's actually going to talk about some of the issues that have come up with TAD and the fact that we still see a lack of stability in their data. And I certainly want to be on record as not implying that I think there's any material misstatements in their numbers at this point, but we still see a lot of things that are not right and things that go both directions, things that cause heartburn for my office, the tax office. And I just feel like that y'all need to know that this is an issue that's out there, and down the road we may have corrections to the numbers. Again, hopefully they're going to be small, but a couple of months ago we had a tape that came in for the new changes and deletes that was $4 million more than it should have been, and they took the $4 million back the next month. Well, the tax office is billing and processing what we received, and then when they send the correction, we have to refund or rebill or reprocess. And so it's really been quite a problem. And so therefore the numbers are so large that the mistakes can be small and not affect anything. But I do want to make sure that I state that, because it is something that caused me to be concerned about what these numbers should look like. I've been here over 20 years, and we've done a lot of trend analysis and trying to do the math to look at the progression and always look at the amount collected. And so the amount that's in there by the calculation is we still estimate we'll collect 100% of the taxes. We did not change that. We did not change our numbers, but the numbers have always followed a progressive path and been right in line. It's hard to line those up anymore because the numbers that you get from TAD today don't necessarily they're not as stable, and you can't line them up. So anyway, sorry to bring that up, but I feel it is something that everyone needs to be aware of. So if we go to the next page, this is actually the differences that you see on that first page, and we can go back to it in a minute if anyone has any questions. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the first 6 items there are things that are included in what's called licenses on the previous page. And the changes there, the first line item on city commissions is just related to, we have more accounts, but we have a lower rate. And so we're projecting that will generate the additional amount of money. The sales tax collection commission would follow in line with what Mr. Manius was talking about with the trend in the car business. Car business has been really good the last several years, and so we're projecting a continued increase there. Real estate, the same way under county clerk deed of trust. We're projecting an increase there because the home market continues to be strong. On the e-filing recovery, that's a fee that we were authorized to collect to recover certain costs, and it is our recommendation based on what we've collected to date that we have met the amount that we were allowed to collect, so therefore we're recommending and have not included any revenue for that filing fee because we've collected what the state initially authorized us to collect. And then the passport line item is based on the reopening of the offices that are currently, that opened on August the 4th. So any questions on licenses? Overall, those are going to be estimated to be up.
Is this Marshal Service, is it forecast for all year?
The Marshal Services, we go on down the page, is for the forecast for all year. And some of that, the uncertainty associated with that is exactly what the change in office holder and the philosophy and how many additional prisoners will be able to be maintained. So it's projected at a somewhat conservative rate until we see what the new is going to look like. I know Ms. Snyder had a conversation with the
Right now, they're holding no more than 48.
What?
Right now, they're holding no more than 48 U.S. Marshal prisoners.
Okay.
We have the criminal court fines there. Those are down. My understanding, and Mr. Schubert could answer any detailed questions, but my understanding is the assessments are the same, but the collections are just off. And
No, we found some additional information. I believe that the collection rate is basically the same as it has been in the past. So,
we don't really know then.
not at this time.
Okay. All right. And the federal flood payment in lieu of taxes, that's related to mineral interests that are under various lakes within Tarrant County. And as we talked earlier, minerals are certainly down. And then the road and bridge fee, that again is a trend, and it's based on the split there, and that's road and bridge. So, any questions or any other thoughts related to revenue? And if I go back to the previous slide. And then finally, the last item that we're projecting as part of the budget is the cash carry forward. And for the most part, what you see there under the general fund is just, again, that the county typically doesn't spend all of its salary and other costs. And our revenues have ticked up a little bit over what we estimated, which gives you the approximately the 5% increase in cash carry forward that's available then for you to use in your 2017 budget.
And the cash carry forward is above and beyond the reserves that we have, no.
No.
It includes the reserve.
It's what?
It includes the reserve.
So once again, I guess I want to make this statement and be sure I'm correct in assuming that. We take the cash carry forward and we take the revenue and we come up with a total number. And then we have a budget and we estimate, project spending all of that. Or we project expenditures equal to the cash carry forward and the revenue. Because I think sometimes we look at this like, okay, I turn back my budget, I don't use all of my budget, and therefore everything's great. If at any point in time, everybody spent what was budgeted in their expenditures, we would end the year with $0 in the bank.
No,
We'd have our reserve.
Well, that's what I just asked.
It includes the reserve. There's a slide on that later.
Yes.
But if it includes our reserves and everybody spent everything,
You would have less cash, but you would still have your reserves. But you would certainly have less cash if everyone spent everything.
The bottom line, you would have nothing for capital for the next year, because that's
Capital
what
would be
funds
what?
capital.
okay. And capital's about 36 million?
It's up. That's correct.
So we have all reserves, all contingency,
Not contingency.
Undesignated.
Undesignated.
undesignated, and both of those are listed in non-departmental.
Correct.
And those, whatever it is, will be carried forward.
Correct.
In this number presented here.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
If everybody spent all their budgets,
We still have the reserves in that in the
we collected
undesignated.
revenue exactly as projected, then we would start with reserves and undesignated
In the non-departmental. Okay.
as cash.
Right.
2.
Thank you.
My turn? You didn't introduce me.
I'm sorry. I don't think you need any introduction.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ed.
I don't know whether you get cheers or jeers this year.
Usually jeers.
We'll see.
Trust me, I know how that score goes. Is that the slide we're on? No.
Hit it
Oh,
one more
I'm
time.
in control. Oh, dang. I don't know where I'm going.
Okay, you need,
You're going the wrong direction. Hit the arrow to go forward.
Down.
Yes, down.
One more. One more.
There you
Okay.
Who's working?
In case you haven't noticed, I'm not on my A game today. And you'll see me up and moving around a lot. I do have a very, very bad back. But we're going to start with this, comparison by function. And what we've tried to do here is to make things as comparable as possible. Commissioner Wynn this morning was asking me about that functional recap that's in the beginning of your budget book, under the recap section, and what makes up each one of those categories. And if you look at that recap, it shows a very, very large increase in general administration. That's because it's a holding area for a lot of things until we get to the point that we approve the budget. So in this slide, we've attempted to dissect it a little and make comparisons for you. So in general administration, it's showing that it's up around $9 million. Public safety is down. And other significant things that we've dissected out of there is the merit increase in the law enforcement step increases, which is why that kind of goes back up to why law enforcement or public safety looks down right now, because the merit increases for those departments are included in the FY16 budget, and we've now taken them out and just trying to show you a comparison. Interfund transfers are up. Interfund transfers are made up of capital. It's up about $5 million, and road and bridge transfers up around $2.6 million. Undesignated, contingency, and reserves, those are pretty much an offset. You can see whatever we had it in undesignated at the end of the fiscal year, or right now, we simply move down to reserves. Any particular question? I know that's confusing information to dissect in just a short time. Ooh, gets small. Looking at significant variations in appropriations overall. Capital, like we just said, is up $5 million, along with the road and bridge transfer. Now, the road and bridge transfer is up pretty much only because the cash in that fund is down. There's 4 new positions. Shows a cost of $272,000, but you'll see later that pretty much all of that was offset by reductions in other operating expense. Group insurance is up $4.2 million. Those of you that sit on the Group Insurance Health Benefits Committee heard the other day about this has been an extremely bad year in our health insurance fund. Of course, it is self-insured. And last year, we ended up taking the approach with health insurance, actually lowering the rate we charge ourselves to balance the budget. Obviously, that's come back to bite us to some extent. Right now, we have a $2 million additional lump sum payment for retirement. But as we said in the letter, it is likely that our recommendation will have to shift that to health insurance also.
You'll have to what?
Shift it to health insurance also. As we continue to look at the performance of that fund and what our projections and PEBC, well, we met last Tuesday with PEBC and received some information from them that even made our projections look a little light.
Our claims are up about 25% this year than last year, about $10 million, almost $10 million more than what they were last year.
Some very sick people.
We have about 5 or 6 claimants exceeding 500,000 each.
And that's where our specific stop loss is.
Kicks in,
And
correct.
it may be more like 7 or more, I thought. So it could be, and we're still 5 months before the end of the year. So it's been a very bad year. And from what they're saying, and I've, since the meeting last week, as I talked to different individuals, I asked them, for whatever the reason is, it is across all industries, it is across all different age. It's just been a bad year for everybody. We're not singled out from that standpoint, but it's been a bad year.
It has, which is exactly why that recommendation will likely change to health insurance.
Debbie, this slide demonstrates the variations from FY16 appropriations,
Correct.
not from one year to the next, right? Okay.
Same difference.
It is from 1 year. It is from what, 16?
Comparing FY16 to the proposed FY17.
Correct.
Okay.
We budget separately for the projected retiree insurance cost, and you can see that is up significantly too. Thanks to P3 and the latest contract from that, the electricity cost overall is down. Next one is right away. Application service provider, which is an IT function. Professional services is up about $500,000. That's primarily related to our activity in supporting the JPS bond issue, as well as some work that's being done at Echo Lake Park. Software and computer maintenance is up $2.6 million. About 1.6 of that is related to CUC projects. Principal and interest payments are marginally changed. Reserves are up, and like we said, undesignated, that's pretty much an offset. These are the new positions that are being recommended. And again, the 3 out of 4 in the general fund were chosen solely because they had offsets to permanent operating costs. So you can see there that $222,000 becomes $105,000 in true net impact. Here's our recommended use of cash. And like we were saying earlier, undesignated and reserves is a component of cash. So we start with those two. And then the balance is used toward capital. And as you can see, the capital exceeds the amount of cash that's available. But we're very careful to make sure that we use excess cash for one-time expenses, being capital.
And so the reserve number up there, the 41,277, that is the reserves that would be needed in order to comply with our policies among the various categories of reserves
Correct.
throughout the process.
Correct.
So where's the other $8 million for capital come from?
From operating funds.
From operating?
Operating resources. Here's the employee compensation breakout. The merit, which is for non-law enforcement positions. You see there. Market, which applies to IT. Structure, which is across the board for non-law enforcement positions. Then there's a law enforcement structure. And then law enforcement step increases.
The law enforcement structure, is that primarily the jailers?
About $1 million of the law enforcement structure is the jailer change.
Okay, because I thought, okay, so you're saying it's only about $1 million, but that basically gets them up about
To 1821 is the projected target.
Just
That would be-
above Dallas, I believe, isn't it?
We hope so. That's our goal.
Yeah.
above where Dallas is right now.
Yes, before their
And I
budget.
think Dallas is at $18 right now.
Okay.
And I might mention that this employee compensation package is almost $2 million more than what it was in FY16. And again, that's primarily because of the law enforcement, the adjustment of jailers to a higher starting wage and the IT market adjustment. But that's a significant increase from last year, this year.
And that's just, that 11 million is just the salary, or does that also include benefits?
It includes benefits.
It does?
It does.
Okay.
It does. So this is where the breakout would end up on the tax rate between maintenance and operation and debt service. Again, lowering the tax rate to 0.254. You see there what a penny of tax rate is worth, what a percent. We are above our effective tax rate, which triggers the public hearings. And then, of course, below a rollback rate.
How would it impact our revenue if we adopted the effective tax rate?
We would have to find another $8.5 million of reductions.
If we did what, Andy?
Adopted the effective tax rate.
8.5 million. You see there the reductions that the budget office proposed in the budget from the department's request. The proposed appropriations is $587 million, which ironically always equals our revenue of $587 million. That's why we get to say it's balanced. Total capital requested was $40.2 million. Recommended is $36,069. We are scheduled to approve the budget on September 13th. And the public hearings are?
23rd.
Okay. Find that out tomorrow, for sure. Any questions?
Let's go.
Debbie, sorry, I have a couple more questions before you go.
Okay.
For purpose of clarification, I took the total revenues in the budget book and subtracted from the total expenditures, and it showed a negative $65.5 million in deficit. Can you explain that?
Yes. A little confusing. At this stage in the game, if you notice in your recaps, we go to great lengths to put less capital. Because right now, for presentation purposes, so everything's in one place as the department comes up to make appeals, it's all together. Capital is double counted right now. It's included in the department's budget, and it's also included as an operating transfer. In the end, before we approve the budget, whatever's left as approved capital or recommended capital for the departments will be pulled out and put into a special projects fund. And then it's supported by the operating transfer for capital. So it's really, on the surface, is double counted if you're just simply adding numbers. Again, that's why in all the recaps we show how much is capital, so you can end up with a net comparison.
Okay. And of the total committed or recommended budget items that you have here, how much wiggle room do we have to play with? I mean, not play is the wrong word to use.
No, I understand.
How much wiggle room do we
How
have?
much should you focus on? Typically, we start the year in undesignated with $5 million. Right now, there's $5,022,022 in undesignated.
$5,022,022.
Yeah, so there's 22,000 there. Now, so anything that, if we penetrate past that $22,000, it will have to come out of undesignated, barring the fact that there will be some change in revenues as we get,
Clarify that, where does the $22 million come from?
not 22 million, 22,000.
22, okay. So $5 million that you allocated in the non-departmental
Right,
for undesignated.
correct.
So we have $5 million wiggle room
I would not say that.
because,
We like to start the year with $5 million. There's $5,022,000 in there right now. And it's there for unanticipated needs.
right,
And I'll give you a real good example that certainly caught my eye the other day when Public Health was up talking about the potential for doing aerial mosquito spraying. We're talking about a dollar amount of up to $3 million. The only place for $3 million could be produced overnight is from the use of undesignated. So it is there for unanticipated needs.
so we have $5 million to be there for unanticipated needs.
Uh-huh.
During the budget hearing today, this morning, if we approve any additional expenditures, that will take away that wiggle room.
It
Right.
will eat into undesignated. That's the only place for it to come from right now.
So what about the $5 million that you have designated for contingency?
Contingency.
Explain that, please.
Contingency, there's an offset in revenues to contingency. So if we spend down any of that, use any of that, then we lower revenues. And that's there in case there's some unanticipated program or windfall, as far as the revenue might go, that we can capture. Often there's an associated expense and a revenue when you're looking at some sort of new project. A prime example of that is passports. Passports, actually this year was started in mid-year. Obviously, it comes with an expense and a revenue. There's limited number of those things, but they do occur.
Okay.
So that one, if you touch it, there's a corresponding offset to it, so
So we
it's
can't touch
really,
a $5 million contingency?
really not available.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
We want to go to your, let's go to Debbie's. Donna, we're switching over from our system here to a laptop. We'll be with you in just a second. Okay, members of the court, we'll begin to go through the departments now. The first one is the Sheriff's Department.
My understanding, the sheriff's department is satisfied with their budget.
Okay, and that you're saying all the way to page
24.
24? Well, it would be,
That would include sheriff administration, sheriff employee resource,
all the way to 37.
sheriff warrants, sheriff communications, SO investigations, SO patrol, SO courts, SO confinement.
So all the way to page 37.
Yes, sir.
Through 37.
Right, do I have a motion? So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
I'm assuming nobody from the sheriff's office wanted to speak.
If they did, they should have got up.
I don't believe there's anyone here.
Y'all heard that.
Constable Precinct 1.
Judge King got up, but I don't think he's wanting to speak.
Move approval of Constable Precinct 1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Constable 2.
You okay, Terry? Satisfied.
Move for approval of Constable Precinct 2's budget.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Constable 3.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Constable 4.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Constable 5.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Constable 6.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Constable 7.
Constable,
Eliminate it.
move for approval.
I'll second.
I was trying to figure out whether the move to eliminate got in there before the move to whatever your move was. We are clear that it is a move to approve and not to eliminate. And we have a second.
You have to pick on
You
the
do.
constable. You drove all the way from Mansfield.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Constable 8.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Go to work, rein in revenue.
Medical examiner.
What, and I want to, when we get, and maybe this is when we get to the Capitol or when we get to the garage or whatever, we did have, and I may have mentioned this to some other folks, but I would like for us to look at the light package that we put on those constables' cars. Because I agree with, I had an opportunity to kind of look at that. When you get inside of it, and by the time you put the little light over here that's strobing, and then you put the light bar in the back, you don't have much of a view outside of the automobile.
These new vehicles that we're getting set up, they look like this. And
Very weird.
they're the most horrible patrol cars I believe I've ever seen. I don't know where you're buying them, Jack, but we need to look that situation over. I'm serious. I think they're dangerous. They can't seem to back up or anything else.
And to the best of my knowledge, for the constables, we are not buying those vehicles any longer.
What?
We're not buying those any longer.
Well, I mean,
We
that's
stayed in this
good.
long enough to get one in precinct, or some in precinct 4.
Well, if that be the case, fine, but I still think that if you put the light package on the top, and granted, they may not be running lights on often, but when they do, when you got that light inside the car with you, I'm sure presents a real good light effect at night, especially inside the vehicle. I don't know how many people see it outside the vehicle. And then along the side, you have nothing that really gives any indication that there's a vehicle traveling or it's an emergency vehicle traveling. So I'd like for us to look at the light package.
Your Honor, we agree with you. We need to look at that package.
Okay.
But not at this time.
Right.
We'll look at it when we get to garage or whoever outfits those things.
Okay, medical examiner.
They're satisfied.
Dr. Pirwani is not here today.
No.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Fire marshal.
Satisfied.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
CSCD.
What about pretrial? Or did I just,
CSE, page 5.
okay, I see it, CSCD, I'm sorry.
Move for approval of CSED's budget.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Pretrial release.
Satisfied.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Juvenile Services.
Who is that?
Ben.
Who is our new, you ought to come up here and we ought to grill you for something. You shouldn't be able to get a free pass on your first time in the hot seat. See, I knew there was a wise choice made there.
Well, you already make a right decision by not increasing your budget much.
Congratulations again on that new
You have
job.
a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
We have the 323rd District Court.
Does that include everything in juvenile?
They're satisfied. Yes, it does. It's two departments, two cost centers.
Juvenile detention,
Yes.
move approval.
Second.
Now, wait a minute. Okay.
I'm sorry.
They
Please
got two
vote.
cost centers.
Motion passes unanimously. Now we've got the 323rd.
Yes, sir.
They're satisfied.
Move for approval.
Second. We have a motion, a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
We're now going to go to Community Services. First one is Public Health.
Oh, different tab.
Human Services.
We have aerial spraying in this budget.
Now,
No, we do not.
no,
No, we do
Good.
not.
That's in undesignated.
that's where.
If we decided to,
Yes, I do.
if we decided to do
I
that.
move approval of public health.
Second.
What happened to Human Services?
We're coming up.
It's the next one down.
Okay, so, go ahead,
Computer.
Commissioner Fickus.
Yeah, where's Vinnie?
Vinny, come on up.
Vinnie, you adding 10 and reducing 3, is that correct? 10 positions,
They're all grants.
they're all grants. Yeah,
So, yes, sir, we're looking to add 10, and eliminations were actually 4, 3 incumbent filled positions and 1 vacancy.
So the reason this is not included in your numbers as far as new positions is because these are all grant-funded positions.
They're actually, public health is, obviously has a very large number of grants. But public health is funded primarily by their own fees and JPS. And JPS has included an additional $350,000 to go toward these positions. The balance is funded by an interfund transfer for disrep or 1115 waiver.
Vinnie, on the 3 positions that you are eliminated that are incumbent filled, are you able to absorb any of those 3 people into your existing operation?
Right, so we're working with HR on that issue. Obviously, HR is going to help us figure out where these folks could land if there are any openings within the county. We have 10 positions if you approve coming up. Certainly, these folks are welcome to apply for positions that they qualify for.
We've got some pretty long-serving employees in those positions. I'd hate for us to just cut them loose.
Understood.
Okay.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second on this, don't we? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Human Services.
We're satisfied.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Child Protective Services.
I agree.
Good morning, Bruce.
Morning, sir.
Morning. How are you, Bruce?
Commissioners, pleased to be here. I wanted to talk about the minor variations we have in the budget that we've discussed with Debbie.
Here we go.
She has asked for us to relinquish $2,000 more in transportation. Completely agree with that. The $500 that we have set aside for volunteer programs, I would like to retain the $1,000 we have in there. If $500 is needed, we should take it out of transportation also. We're in a transition period with the transportation, and we're simply not spending that money right now. But I'd like to keep the monies that we have in there to take care of the volunteers. So the bottom line is the same. I'd just like to change where the $500 comes from.
So you
I
want-
don't have a problem with that.
I don't either. Deb, you
No.
got that figured out?
Pretty easy. Got
Okay.
it. Thank you.
So we'll make that change and then,
And move approval of the budget. with
Uh,
that change.
I have another comment that I need to make. The biggest variation is the $136,000 we have in there. The reason for that right now, we don't think it will be that much, but once again, the state numbers have not been handed to us. We cannot finalize that until we get the state numbers. It's our anticipation right now that the most significant thing there, which is the participation rate between the state and the county, won't change. And if that's true, we'll be fine. But we always like to tell Debbie and make sure that all of you know that that piece is up to the state. And last year, I think it was last year, Debbie, we simply blew that number away that we had given as a worst case. This, we think, is the worst case this year, and we'll ask you to accept that the way it is, and whenever we get the real number, we will make that change. Notify Debbie. I expect it to come down.
how soon does that normally come down?
It's rare that we don't have it before now. So,
Okay.
What we are hearing from the state is that they are really tied up working on all of the other budgets. I think it's related to the legislative process and what they're trying to do. I don't know. We've been told not to expect it soon. Don't know.
Any other changes?
No, sir, no other changes.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thanks. Thank
I'd
you,
like to
Bruce.
make one other comment. If we continue, as you probably all know, we have decided to take an advocate role with the state on CPS and try to make some improvements there. If that happens this next year, if we can get salary increases for our CPS people, then that number from the state will change even more next year.
continue.
I hope it doesn't in some ways. I certainly hope it does.
A lot of debate going on over that right now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Public assistance.
Public assistance is a budget that we maintain. Now, we have moved a few items out of non-departmental over here. They are not new, they're just moved. And those are Alliance for Children and Youth Recovery Campus. We have moved One Safe Place, the allocation we've been making to them, from a special purpose budget that will no longer have the resources to fund this. If you have no questions, we're recommending its approval.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Ag Live.
We're satisfied, thank you.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Veteran Services.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Commissioners. The one issue or reservation I had was a request for a new position. We were requesting a grade 17 position. As you know, we've been revamping our veteran services. Since October last year, we have assisted over 1,800 clients, in which that is almost over 1,000 walk-ins, and that generated over 1,100 new clients, period. We have conducted over 19 new outreach events, in which that doesn't include into our numbers where the 200-300 people we come in contact with. Myself included with 3 assistant service officers that I have. We assist nearly 40 veterans a month individually, which comes up to almost 160 for an average monthly. Now, the 1,877 veterans so far is to date to fiscal year, and we were asking a reconsideration. And we understand that we're rebuilding, we're still moving along. However, we are growing. We are bringing more veterans to Tarrant County, as well as the disability compensation, which is going to bring more revenue in tax dollars through the Veterans Land Board, in which I foresee that we're going to hear from Mr. Wallingford or Commissioner Bush here shortly about that number as well.
Do you have comparative numbers between what you're doing now and what was being done prior to your arrival?
We discussed that in our my budget meeting, yes, Your Honor. And we've talked about, unfortunately, when I took over this position in May of 2015, the proper numbers of the proper entities were not there. There were a lot of closed doors, there were a lot of roadblocks. And unfortunately, the leadership failed the county. Not this leadership, the leadership in that office. And under a new director, myself, we have changed that. Getting out into the community and making sure that people are seeing who we are and what we want to do for this county. And I know that another position not only would expand our grasp on the 118,000 estimated veterans in Tarrant County, and that would definitely help us get out and outreach to more.
And I'm hearing that the number of veterans relocating to Tarrant County is anticipated to be increasing significantly?
Correct, Commissioner. Because of the drawdown of military troops, as you're probably aware of, the deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq have come to a slow crawl. Veterans are being pushed out honorably after 10, 15 years, and this is where their last duty station was. I can tell you that we're getting a lot of folks from the JRB, from the Grand Prairie Reserve Station as well, and these folks are going to make Tarrant County their home.
What do you want this new position to do?
This new position would be an assistant veteran service officer. It would be someone just like my current assistants that would be conducting outreaches to include home visits to the elderly, in which we do, setups in the communities, as well as the claims process and benefits counseling. The Texas Veterans Commission is the one who oversees the training, and they actually will pay for one training a year in the fall time frame. This would bring, like I said, sir, it would bring us closer to being able to reach out. Having employees that of a small number, it really does not allow us to venture out of the office very much. Now that we're seeing 15 to 20 veterans a day, if not 40 veterans per counselor a month.
How many counselors do you have right now?
3, and not including myself.
So Thomas, is this a position you're requesting now or something you want to build toward for fiscal year 18?
It was originally requested now, however, I can let it go to 18 if we have to.
What about office furniture and stuff? Is that included in the budget?
Yes, sir. That was included in the
That
the
was
budget.
$5,000?
Correct. I think the total amount came up to about $67,000, which would include the capital for the new position.
Comes up to how much?
About $67,000.
Well, wait a minute, you were on, the 39,000 was for the employee and 5,000, that makes 44, so where did we get to the 66?
Well, you've got to put all the benefits on there, the FICA, retirement, and health insurance.
Yeah, but that's not
Here,
$20,000.
No, is that included in these figures up here?
the benefits is $21,792.
Is that proposal included in your estimate on retirement, insurance, and so forth?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
The 67 includes all the benefits plus the ancillary benefits.
But the new position is not recommended in the budget.
That's correct.
So that's why you asking for us to make that decision,
Yes, sir.
to add a new position, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Debbie, was that a yes, no, or I don't know?
Hold on. I mean, if you're gonna consider this position, I would recommend $64,230, which is a combination of the salary and benefits, $2,500 for furniture, and about $1,000 for education. I'm sorry,
Well, he's got 5,000 in here for capital outlay, which he said was,
but that's not for the furniture for this position.
well, that's what he just told me it was. Is it or not?
It is. Yes, it is.
But it's not recommended.
Okay, let's
All
back
right,
up. Let's back up for just a second.
Is it?
No, it's not recommended.
It's not recommended.
But it's requested.
It's requested.
It's
So
requested.
I'm still trying to, in my own mind, figure out if we're talking about a $39,000, where's my calculator? I ain't got my calculator.
Now we're talking about 67 or something thousand.
I got one.
You got one too?
I got one.
Position with benefits is $60,730.41.
Repeat that number again?
60,000. Sorry, it's this number right here. The bottom of your page.
No, I don't know what bottom of, we can't see that.
Tell us again, 60,000 what?
60,730.41.
That's salary plus benefit.
Correct.
Is it 5,000 or 2,500 for furniture?
Furniture.
Which is it, 5 or 25?
I'm sorry, 25.
2,500 for furniture.
Okay. Right. 53,000 something,
Okay.
$200.
So the salary, the wage for this position is about 39,000, and then we have to add an additional 19,000 to it.
And I guess
For benefit,
okay.
that's,
No.
I want to go backwards a second.
50,000.
You're telling me that for every dollar in salary, we're paying 50 cents.
Depends on the salary of the it depends on the salary of the employee. The higher the wage earner, the less that amount the more that amount comes down. The lower the salary, and yes, it's really quite significant. If you look across here, I've kind of got highlighted that bottom row, which is the veterans. The first numbers being the salary. Should be on your screen.
What page do we look at to find those figures?
You won't find them in your book, sir.
Man, you expect us to read that from here?
It should be on your screen. Is it
We
not on your
don't
screen?
have,
It's not on our screen.
We don't have it on the screens.
Oh, I
don't know.
thought it was. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
just a second.
we don't,
Salary,
Salary, FICA,
FICA,
retirement, health insurance.
$12,000 in health insurance.
well, I'm stopping for a second. What is this number?
Get
Retirement.
that junk out of the way so
Retirement.
we can get
Well, I'm
to the
sorry,
real
but
deal.
7, help me understand why 7% of this number is that high. I guess that's the double amount, right? It's 14%.
That's the retirement is 17.5.
This is health insurance?
Correct.
We'll fix this at the break.
Huh?
Fix this at the break.
Okay.
Benefits are so much.
That just goes to show what the health insurance is.
For like health insurance.
Where were we last year? We were at about 9?
905
Salary, we're still gonna have to
a month.
Okay.
I think we should put this position on the side to be considered and go ahead and approve the rest of the budget.
I agree.
So moved.
That it, second.
A motion is second.
That thing had worked.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, we did.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Historical Commission, they're okay with that.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion is second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Resource Connection,
I'm fine with the budget presented.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion is second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Before we go into judicial, could we take just a little bit of a break?
Oh, thank you.
Hallelujah.
I guess before we go into non-departmental,
Your Honor, we're now going to move to the judiciary. The first one will be the civil courts, the 17th District.
They're satisfied.
Move for approval.
Second.
But we have a motion and a second.
Come on, Marcus.
Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
did we approve the non-departmental?
That was part of the Resource Connection piece.
Okay.
48th District,
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
67th District,
Satisfied?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
bless you.
Thank you.
Indeed.
96th District,
Satisfied?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
141st District,
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
153rd District,
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
the 236th District,
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
the 342nd District,
Satisfied?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
the 348th District,
Move for approval. I
Second.
guess. Are they satisfied?
Second.
Hope so.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
the 352nd,
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
231st,
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
233rd,
Satisfied?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
322nd,
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
324th,
Satisfied?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
325th,
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
360th,
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
we're now at County Court at Laws. This is County Court at Law number 1.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
County Court at Law number 2.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
County Court at Law number 3.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
We're now going to move to Probate Courts, Probate Court 1.
Judge Steve King said he's satisfied with his. I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Probate Court 2.
Let me make a quick comment, sir. Probate court number 2, there is a project employee included in this budget to assist with the public probate administrator program. Unfortunately, Judge Furchill is not available to discuss it with him, but we did talk to their court administrator. So, it's not a full-time position, that's why it wasn't listed on your full-time position list.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Commissioner Fickus?
Yeah, does this have to do with the additional attorney that would be working on the probates that they're doing and,
To handle small estates.
right, right.
Yes, that's
yeah.
what it's for, correct.
But they're looking at doing a few other type of collections.
They're looking, they've discovered, They've discovered funds that have been escheated to the state of Texas where we have provided a burial for the
Right.
individual. So yes, they're looking at that too.
It's a fairly significant number.
It appears it could be. Unfortunately, we've not seen any result from those efforts yet, which is why there's no revenues associated with the program. And this project position would actually, there's a individual in that court right now that's trying to do 2 jobs.
Right.
And in essence, this project position would be to do that person's job to free them up to work on the small estates issues.
Does Judge Furchel want to come in next week or something and visit?
I don't think so. I think we're okay with trying this methodology
Okay.
until we can see something produced from the program.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
We're now going to move to criminal district courts.
And Mr. Schubert has noted that the criminal district courts through the magistrate court are satisfied with their budget.
Move approval of all of them.
Right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve them all. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Stewart, you want,
Yes.
Okay, hold on. What page are we now moving toward?
102?
Well, if all of your judges are satisfied.
Yes. Is everybody on the right page?
Well, I'm not gonna say that, but I think we're all on page 102 of the,
so we approve all the way through magistrate court?
That's
Correct.
correct.
go.
The criminal courts really do appreciate all what the commissioners do, and we understand the budget constraints, and we really do appreciate all the hard work that the budget office does. And we visited with Debbie prior to this, so we're not catching her off guard. And we had sent out a email to courts and to your staff about the 2 family violence diversion program positions that we are requesting. The little history of this program, it actually started as a grant-funded program in 2000 and, make sure I get my dates right, 2007 under a grant-funded program. And these positions were funded there were 2 supervisory positions of our family violence diversion program were grant-funded and supervised by CSCD. And in 2014, the funds for that grant went away. So right now, CSCD is absorbing supervising positions that are not on probation. These are all pre-adjudicated positions. So in addition to that, CSCD is looking to reduce the number of its headcount due to wanting to raise the level of their entry-level probation officer. And Layton is here today if you want to discuss specifics of that. As you know, Criminal Courts Administration and CSCD have the same set of bosses. So we work together in our programs. There are a lot of programs that we work together in. And for example, last year, we moved our drug court program, which is under Criminal Courts Administration. We moved that to CSCD because all those positions were probation positions. These were people under probation. So what we're requesting is to fund 2 positions in the general fund to be supervised by Criminal Courts Administration to continue the family violence diversion program that went in effect. Judge Cummings, who supervises that program, is here to answer any specific questions about that program. For the past 2 fiscal years, we've actually had grant funding set aside in case we could achieve another grant in County Criminal Court number 5. The budget that you just recommended to move forward, there's a reduction of 80, I believe it's 78,000 that we realize we'll never get grant funding for these positions. So we've actually done a reduction. And the budget proposal, as the default, is to bring a position in November. What we'd like the Commissioners Court to consider is to bring these 2 positions to keep this family violence program going in February, which would roughly cost, including capital, just under $100,000 to keep these positions going in FY 2017.
Okay, so if I'm looking on page 110, that's where it's coming out of, Judge, your court, the 78,000 in matching grant funds?
That's correct, and as you know, that's a one-time reduction. That's not going to be something we'll be able to do every year.
Right, now, when you have number questions, ask him. If you want to ask questions about the program, I'll be glad to answer anything. It's been a very successful program, and it's been around since, and it started off in probation because there was no criminal courts administrator. And Layton's under a budget crunch, and so he has already taken one person away from me, and he wants to keep adding, and Layton's here too.
Yeah, Layton's back there, he's now trying to get underneath that bench.
He keeps adding responsibilities because he has to. I think if you'll read Greg's email, that he's desperately trying to raise, Layton's desperately trying to raise the incoming salary for a probation officer, because his example he keeps using is a cook at Buc-ee's makes more per hour than the incoming probation officer. So he's desperately trying to control his budget and find money to do that. It's a terrible time to ask y'all to move these positions to Greg, but my program works because I continuously tweak it and make it work, and it's time to move these people over here so Layton can have his positions and I can have my positions. I think if we leave them in probation, Layton's not going to have any choice but to keep adding responsibilities, and they're not going to have the time and attention to add to put forward to my participants, and I think the program will die.
Can you share exactly what these two positions will do?
They're case managers. Easiest way to explain it is to give you an example. If Ms. Schneider goes home tonight and because of her back pain, she gets into a fight with her husband because he won't cook her dinner or something like that, and she gets mad and just pushes him into a wall, and let's say he breaks a rib or something like that, and he gets mad and he calls 911, she gets arrested. Well,
Dang, Dad.
For anybody else, we wouldn't believe that. There ain't no question in anybody's mind that this is a possibility.
Is the Aggie in her?
But it's a good case, and the DA can make it, so she has no reason to dismiss this case, but everybody knows Debbie's never been in trouble before. Her husband doesn't want her prosecuted, and so that's the type of people, and he wants her into a program. And that's the type of people that come into this program. Or the other example I can use is, let's say her husband's beat her for years and years and years, and she's put up with it, and she finally gets mad and hits him back. But now she's the one who is arrested. I have people like that in the program too.
That's a great example.
So this is the 149,615?
Well, that would have been if we would have funded for the entire year. We're requesting to bring these positions on in February, so it would be about $100,000.
But in FY18, it will be
It'll
150.
It will be a rough. They're grade 18 case managers, and they were funded. They are $50,000 a year, and I will not get into the math of what percentage of this. Seeing the challenges we had about how much health insurance has gone up and that sort of thing, but it will run. It will be very expensive to keep these positions going. That is correct. I mean, at some point, they're long-term positions that become part of the county's unfunded liabilities and retirement and so forth. And I understand that's why the budget office is very tight on recommending budgets, because it's not just a short-term impact, but the long-term impact of positions.
Most of the other criminal diversion programs are under him. I'm one of the few, I think, that is still with probation. And once again, that's because it was created before his position was created.
So Debbie, the cost of 100,000, does that include benefits?
I'm going to have to trust Mr. Sugar's calculations because I'm not trying to do the math right here. I can only tell you that if it's different, we will certainly let you know. Now, to put the facts on the table, when we were looking at new positions, we were looking for things with offset. Obviously, there's an offset of grant match here, so it would have hit the surface for further consideration. We just missed that analogy.
Why don't we take all these new positions and put them into to be continued so we can consider all the new positions at the same time?
I don't have a problem with doing that because I think we need to see a total of what all these new positions are gonna run us. We've been told that, I think, the long and the short of the undesignated was we got $22,000 to spend.
That's correct.
I can do that math, that's a little bit more than that.
Thank you, Mr. Sugar.
I'm here to serve, sir.
And you didn't even go to A&M and you can tell us that.
That's why he works across the street and not in this building.
Let's not experience death by 1,000 cuts. Let's just put it over here and deal with.
So how much is the total cost for these two positions in FY17? Benefits and all?
I'm just under 100,000 if we fund it in February.
Okay.
And then from that point forward, we're talking about closer to 200,000.
I show 133,000, so I think your number's high.
Well, that includes the capital.
Oh, okay.
That includes the
Okay.
capital, so, because you have to buy furniture for.
I agree with you, Commissioner Brooks. Why don't we just put all this into the,
I appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you.
so before we make any kind of a motion, I hear the sentiment of one, maybe two, to put this new position, or these two new positions, into the to be determined file, but everything else in the budget we're gonna pass.
That works for us, sir.
In which budget are we talking about here?
This is in the criminal court administration.
On page 102?
I'll make the motion based on what you just said.
Second.
We got seconds. Is anybody unclear on what I just said?
No, go for it.
But I do have one question regarding this.
Okay, well, which, of what we just said, or
Yes,
what the other part
regarding
of
what we
this
just
budget?
said, right. What would happen if these two positions are not granted? What would happen to the program?
CSCD, Layton will keep working with me, but because of his budget constraints and because of what he's trying to do to raise the salary of a first-time probation officer, I think we're below Dallas.
Come on forward. You just thought, I saw you were inching toward the edge of your seat. I didn't know whether that was to run through the back doors or to come on forward.
Good morning, Commissioners and Judge. We are attempting to increase our entry-level salary right now for a probation officer. It's about $36,000 a year plus benefits. That's for a degreed required position. I am set an ambitious goal to, through attrition, to decrease 18 positions and take that money and reinvest and increase our entry-level salary. We cannot continue to train and have, we've lost our competitive edge, for a degree position. So we're losing folks after training for 2 years. So in terms of these positions, if it was not funded, I'm going to need to add other duties to these because I'm having to take these out of my basic supervision budget. We absorbed these when the grants went away. They were through the county grants, and so our state funding is getting much tighter, as you know, and it's not going to be any better in the next 2.5 years. So I'm going to have to.
Why did the grant go away? Why did it go away?
I believe
If the
that
program is so
There were federal victims assistance grant through VAWA grants, and they went away because they did not want to fund a pre-adjudicated program. They all had to be a post-adjudicated program. So the grant funds went away because the way the program was designed is to allow people to be pre-adjudicated supervisions. The grant wouldn't fund it.
If I may interrupt, what they're whispering about over here is.
I appreciate you telling us because we often wonder what they're whispering about. Just go ahead and step right up there and tell us.
The $36,000 that you start with at probation with a college degree is the same thing as a jailer makes.
That we're proposing.
Okay, thank you. Did you have it? Now,
I'm done.
remember, a couple of years, it may have been more than a couple, because time flies when you're having as much fun as we are. But we made the statement that as the feds and as the state saw an unwillingness to continue grants, that we were going to have to look at each one of those and determine how critical it was to continue spending that money out of our money. And I would have to say that, I mean, I know we're going to put all this stuff aside, but I just have to say that I think domestic violence is one of those things that, as long as we feel like we're getting positive and good results out of it, that we need to continue to do, because we've really got to try to get some sort of a handle. And we are still reportedly some of the highest, I think second, if not first, among counties as far as domestic violence goes.
I have the largest docket in the criminal courts.
So, thank y'all. Any other questions? Motion passes unanimously, and again, that motion is to put those two positions over in the to be determined file.
Grand jury.
Everything else in criminal courts is just Jim Davies.
That's grand jury, criminal attorney appointments, and criminal mental health.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I will say that one of the things that I'm concerned about in our appointments continues to be the lack of support we're getting from the state. When they passed that Senate bill, they indicated they were going to fund it. They have never funded more than about 20, at most maybe 28% in some of the earlier years. We're absorbing a larger and larger percentage each year, and I see nothing that indicates that that's going to be turned around. And so that's one of those crippling unfunded mandates that only seems to be getting worse. And where's Mendez? Keep fighting them. Now, I want you to go to Senator Ellis, soon to be Commissioner Ellis, and remind him that he's the reason for that unfunded mandate. Or John Dahill and Don Lee and I might all go down there and talk to him again after the event that we had when he passed it. Next item, do we need to approve the grand jury?
Have we voted on that yet? Okay, so we have a vote on that. Okay, so, Your Honor, now we're going to county criminal courts.
And all of the county criminal courts, 1 through 10, are satisfied.
Move approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, we're now going to Justices of the Peace, JP Precinct 1.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I assume this means that that they don't all agree, or we don't know yet?
I only got responses from 2.
From who?
I only got responses that they were satisfied from 2 of the JP court.
Which two?
2 and 7.
3 and 7.
Okay.
Are there any Justice of the Peace represented?
We're satisfied.
And would you like to amend your motion?
To what?
Who made it? Who made the motion?
I did. JP 1.
I was just going to say you might make it 1 through 8.
8.
Okay. I amended my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve budgets 1 through 8 of the JPs. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Now, we come to the District Attorney's Office, and Ms. Wilson, you wanted to make a PowerPoint presentation? Okay, you'll need about 5 seconds to change over from this screen to the PowerPoint.
Now we can take up some slack now.
That was the vacation.
Did you tell her she had 5 minutes?
Huh?
Did you tell her she had 5 minutes?
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay.
She's burning up time right now.
Okay, I want to thank you first for allowing me to speak to our, the Criminal District Attorney's Office budget request for FY 2017. Criminal prosecution is changing, and it's changing through no fault of this commission or any of the employees of that office. Primarily, it's because of mandated changes by the state legislature, as well as the increasing use of body cams and cameras by all our law enforcement entities. Since taking office in January of 2015, what I did from a management perspective was to review every single position that we have and try to measure workloads for those positions, make sure that the positions we have are in the locations within our office that they should be. We have reassigned existing personnel throughout the office to establish our conviction integrity unit, our law enforcement incident team, a technology director to deal with TSP. We've also expanded white-collar public integrity, mental health protective orders, expanded intake and grand jury, and we've done all that without an increase in budget or personnel and returning dollars every single year. In FY 2015, we made no mid-year request for personnel when I took office January 1 of 2015. Like my counterparts in Dallas and Bexar County did immediately on taking office, they requested personnel. In FY 2016, we made no request for a budget increase. So what's different about 2017? I want to go through these explanations for you for why we feel like at this time we must have 14 attorneys to meet our legal obligations. We're going to be looking at population comparisons, caseload comparisons, and the new and increased responsibilities in the DA's office. So the first slide is the number of residents per DA employee. We tried to quantify and looked at every county, the big 5 counties. I didn't include El Paso. Actually, Collin County, I think, is now larger than El Paso. We didn't include them. We used all the big 5, over 1 million in population. And please note that our office has the fewest employees per capita of the population in these big 5 counties. That matters because population means crime. Our felony case filings have increased as the population has increased in each of these years. That's 2014, 15, and 16. And you can see the population increasing and actually felony filings increasing. Not misdemeanors, but felonies. We have looked to find a study of what is the proper caseload per prosecutor in a DA's office, so that we're not just here asking because we think that we need it. We want to be able to quantify for you what it is that we need and why we need it. And we found the American Prosecutor Research Institute study of 2007. And that study was interesting because what they did was actually develop a formula for determining what is the total number of prosecutors needed for the work. And they take the annual case disposition. We chose 2015, got our data from Tech-Share Prosecutor, and then we divide that by the workload measure by case type. And that workload measure was what was determined by the APRI, the American Prosecutor Research Institute. They defined a workload measure for each kind of offense. The interesting thing is that the case disposition divided by the workload measure, according to the APRI analysis, we should have 101 felony prosecutors that just do this work. We currently have 61. That is 61 felony prosecutors. That's the 5 per our 10 courts, as well as the Special Victims Unit and the Gang Unit. We included all those in that list of offenses. So according to the American Prosecutor Research Institute, and let me say, this is a 2007 study which predates Michael Morton and the impact that that's had on us as far as looking at all the evidence, gathering it, and sending it off. So according to their standards, we have 61 felony prosecutors doing the work of 101. Not only do we have too few prosecutors for our population as well as for our caseload, we also are asking a lot more of each of our individual prosecutors. Yes, sir.
Can I stop and ask a question?
Yes.
So if this number was true, and I'm not doubting it, I just want to confirm something.
Yes, sir.
So that means your prosecutors are currently working way over 40 hours a week. Can you quantify those hours?
We don't keep hours. We do not keep hours in our office. Some large offices do because they pay comp time to their attorneys for the time over 40 hours that they work, and we do not. But I can tell you that our office hours are more than 40 hours a week. Currently, 43 hours a week. Remember? It was the big brouhaha. And they work longer than that. I mean, I typically am there quite a bit in the evening, and I see lawyers when I leave. I know and have heard that our attorneys are taking their computers home so that they can continue to do work. Can I quantify that? No, I cannot.
Can you help quantify that? Because I think it's important. If all prosecutors are working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, then that's a very direct indication that we are way understaffed.
I suppose that it's possible for us to contract with someone. I know the Office of Court Administration contracted with the National Center for State Courts to do a caseload measure for the judiciary in the state of Texas. That was 5 years ago. So I suppose that I could contract with them to come do a prosecutor study on work time.
I guess one of the things, because one of the things, again, we were fighting on indigent defense is an attempt to quantify the caseloads of the attorneys and how many indigent defense cases they were taking, and that was in an effort to either, one, increase the fees or significantly limit an attorney on how many cases they could take, which basically equates to we're going to get ready to spend a whole lot more money on indigent defense based upon some of these same studies. And I understand we don't keep track of hours and stuff like that, but I think we're going to have to if we start trying to increase these numbers by that, because I argue vehemently against the argument at the indigent defense thing. I just don't believe it. I'm sorry. I don't have a whole lot of faith in that study in 2007. So
You don't have a lot of faith in this study?
No, I don't.
Okay, and that's fine. We're actually desperately trying to find studies about the numbers of prosecutors needed. I would suggest that that is way off because it predates Michael Morton. So it doesn't take into account any of the evidence that we now deal with from body cams or the requirement that it be gathered up and provided to the defense attorneys. You know, my job is not to vouch for these studies, although that's done by the national prosecutors of the National District and County Attorneys. District Attorneys Association apparently commissioned it. It was 2007. That certainly predates me in this office, but it is a study. I can tell you that indigent defense is completely different, and there's a study for indigent defense that was just done by Texas A&M, and I believe was published this year as far as how many cases per lawyer for a defense attorney. Okay, so we're asking more of our prosecutors, not just that we have too few or that their caseloads are too large, but also the responsibilities that are included. We have an incredible increase in evidence that has to be reviewed by every prosecutor in every case. In 2013, we went from 0.37 terabytes of evidence to this year, to date, this year, January through the end of July, 38.7 terabytes of evidence. I have not seen the budgets for the other departments, but I would be guessing that your indigent defense expenses are going up because we have to look at all that, we have to provide a list of it, and we have to give it to the defense. And typically the defense attorneys are reviewing all that and billing the court for it, is my understanding. I don't have those numbers. That's not a budget that I had access to. So we have had from 2014 to 2015, that's about a 10.5% increase in evidence uploaded. Some of that was still on disk in addition to that. And then from 2015, which is when we implemented TechShare Prosecutor, right? November of 2015. So now almost all evidence comes in electronically. It is about a 637% increase in evidence. Also, we ask our prosecutors to be experts in scientific evidence. DNA has become a real hot topic in criminal justice because we want to make sure that we have the correct use of the DNA. We may have a DNA test, but the comparison of that test to the population has been somewhat problematic over past cases. In fact, this forensic science change, our Tarrant County medical examiner right now has a purchase order out for a program for probabilistic genotyping. We don't have to understand what that is, but our lawyers have to. UNT Health Science Center already has done the same thing. So not only do we have a change in science, but our lawyers are going to have to be trained and understand that science so that they can put the testimony on.
I believe we approved that purchase order this past Tuesday.
That's correct.
We have more mental health experts, more mental health issues among defendants or claims for those, more expert qualifications and admissibility hearings. Electronic evidence, you can well imagine that everyone is using their cell phone more. And that evidence comes in. We have to deal with the admissibility of that. There's also some new changes in cell site records. Interestingly, following up with Judge Cummings, we have specialty courts. We've got the felony alcohol program. We've got a misdemeanor DWI program. We've got a first offender drug program. We have the direct drug program, mental health and veterans. All of these courts require an assistant DA to be assigned to them as a resource to the court, and we staff and have people in all prosecutors in each of those as a resource for each of those programs. This year, we ask Lake Niles and CSCD, when they apply for their grants, if they would also apply for part of a prosecutor, 20% of a prosecutor. And we would cobble them all together and actually have funding for a lawyer to try to start doing most of these. And he informed me just last week that all those requests from CSCD for grant money were denied. So that's where we find ourselves, not just with too many cases, too few prosecutors for population, but also an increased responsibilities in volume of evidence, as well as the science, the electronic, and the other assignments that they have. Interestingly, this terabyte, we are for 38.7 for this year. All of the police agencies, and keep in mind, Fort Worth has had body cams, so that's a lot is Fort Worth. Many of the smaller agencies are getting body cams. We've been advised that Arlington Police Department is getting body cams. They're our number 2 filing agency, and that is going to drastically increase. It isn't going to just double by the end of the year. It is going to increase even more.
Have there been any discussions about not, I'm sure they're also storing the body cam. So are we now storing it twice? And has there been any discussion about the possibility of having one storage versus having it stored in 2 or 3 different locations?
The law actually requires that the original be kept by the originating agency. They actually send us a copy. They keep the original until such time as we dispose of the case, and then within a time period after that, they're allowed to dispose of it.
And how long are you required to keep it?
It depends on what the level of offense is. We have a 78-page evidence destruction policy, record retention and destruction policy, and I can't tell you what it is without having it with me, and I didn't bring it. It's 5 to 10 years.
It is, but of course the issue is our review of it, not so much the storage capacity.
And I understand that y'all are concerned about the storage because of the cost of the storage. Our perspective is that every bit of that has to be looked at by an attorney. By an attorney so they can evaluate whether or not it is evidence that affects their case, because nobody knows the facts of their case better than the attorney who's prosecuting, and they actually have to look at it and make a determination about what the impact is on their case, and then categorize it, catalog it, so that we can provide it to the defense. The second thing that we're asking for attorneys regarding that. The second thing that we're asking for, are intimate partner violence, felony family violence prosecutors. Our office is the only office in the large counties that does not have a felony family violence unit. Back years and years ago, y'all had a request and you granted it to assign a felony attorney to misdemeanor court, right?
Slight change.
I got it. So, and y'all have a handout on intimate partner violence that's been given you that we didn't put up there. So you know that in the last 3 months of the felony cases that have been filed, we've had 4,363 felony crimes filed in Tarrant County in 3 months. 8% of those are felony family violence related. We have a need that we have not had before for a felony family violence unit to deal with the increase in crime. It has touched the entire county, as y'all will see from this, because we know that in Arlington, we lost a good Samaritan who tried to stop a beating at the Walgreens. We know that we have had a husband, allegedly, because the case is not over, throw his wife over the bridge off Lake Worth. We've had we've had at least 2 family violence, murder-suicides in South Lake, or murders. I mean, it is throughout our community. There is not a part of Tarrant County that's not addressed by this. And Tarrant County, and I'm not talking the misdemeanor level, Jamie Cummings, Judge Cummings has that well in hand. I'm talking about addressing the felony impact of what we're doing. And we haven't done that. And it's simply time. What we're going to be looking for with that felony unit is to do vertical prosecution on intimate partner violence cases or family violence cases. And those people in that unit will be trained also with crisis response training so that they can know the victim, deal with them, keep them hitched, attached to the case, not wanting to drop charges throughout the trial of the case. And our goal as that team is to increase awareness of this crime in our community and also to try to reduce the recidivism of that kind of violent crime in Tarrant County. I will tell you that, and I hate to even say it, Dallas County has done a good job on dealing with felony family violence. They just have. They have a community effort. They have dedicated prosecutors. We have met with them in their community group. They've actually come over and talked to us. And so this is the beginning of what I hope will be a county-wide effort to deal with felony family violence in Tarrant County. That is a request for 4 lawyers. It's a 5-attorney team. And if we're allowed to have those lawyers, I will tell you that we're taking the court chief for that out of this year's budget. We're going to sacrifice some positions so that we can do that court chief and get started now. Okay, our request is 10 felony attorneys for the Michael Morton body cam discovery issues. That would be 1 per felony court. Part of what we need this for is the slowdown in cases because we can't look at all that evidence and keep the speed to which we've been accustomed. Part of Michael Morton's goal was to slow down criminal prosecution, and it has. You know, their concern was that in civil courts, you could have discovery and it could take a year and then you'd reach a settlement. But in criminal court, somebody would get arrested and 2 days later we'd be pleading them at a jail run. Most of the courts don't even have jail runs anymore because we can't get the evidence in from the police departments, review it, catalog it, and get it to the defense so that they review it before the plea. Literally, it has slowed down the pace of prosecution, but it's also an impossibility that with the amount of evidence that we now receive that we can do the same good work. The other 4 attorneys are for a team for felony family violence. So our total request, and that I believe includes benefits, is $1.291
Sharon, could I
Yes, sir.
ask you a question going back to the 10 felony attorneys? and the slowdown in the prosecution of cases, does that have an impact on the length of time that unadjudicated persons who have not been able to bond out of jail spend in our jail?
So here's the next slide. This is what happens without our needed prosecutors. So last year, the year I took office, we actually had a clearance rate of 103%. The year before, it was 100%. We did, in a felony court only, this is felony, 16,756 pleas. This year, our clearance rate, and that's projected to be 12,000. That's our projected based on how many we've done so far.
Full year.
For a full year, which is dropping in almost 400 cases. It's still, the clearance rate would still be 97%. That's not horrible, but it's not what we've been doing. It's simply not what we've been doing. When we fulfill our legal and ethical obligations, we cannot keep the pace up with the number of people that we currently have. The jail population, you all know that the biggest number in jail population is always unsentenced felons. We found that out when we did the case management system in 2004 for the district courts. As soon as the district courts figured out how to process their cases, the jail population dropped because it was the unsentenced felon number that dropped. Unsentenced felons have already gone up from 54% in 2014 to 57%. That's not crippling. It's not, but it can be.
Sharon, on that bar graph, what's the reasoning behind 253s, 254s, 255s, 256s, 257s?
I don't see where you are. Oh, that would be probably a typo, would be my guess.
Makes it look more dramatic.
The numbers are what the numbers are. It's 54, 56, 57. I apologize, I didn't notice that.
Well, it may not be crippling to the judicial system or the criminal justice system, but it certainly is crippling to those unadjudicated felons who are having to spend more time in jail because they can't write a check to get out, waiting on prosecution.
The cost increases also. I mean, let's be honest. The longer somebody serves in jail, the more the cost increases. So, whether we are compared to the APRI standards or the number of prosecutors per population in similar-sized Texas counties, we think the inescapable conclusion is that we have too few prosecutors to handle the number of cases and the exponential increase in evidence. Every lawyer in my office, every staff member, every investigator knows that our job is to make the justice system just for victims and for defendants and to provide safety and help ensure the safety for us, for our families, and for our neighbors. We realize and accept the responsibility to review all this, and we're doing it. We are absolutely doing it. I've asked my lawyers to do more work than they probably ever thought they'd have to do, and they're actually doing it. We are processing a ton of cases, including from 2015. Look at that number. That's an amazing number, and that's with Michael Morton. It is continuing to increase. The numbers increased dramatically from 2015 to 2016, from 6 terabytes to 38 so far this year. I am very proud of the work of every employee of our office, but they are at a breaking point. And I recognize the amount of money that Tarrant County has to spend, not just because of legislative mandates like Michael Morton, but also because of city decisions to put a body camera on every person that works for their office or their department. You all know that I've been a careful steward of money. That has been my practice with this county before I became the district attorney. And in the past fiscal years, I have tried to be very careful with the money you gave me and have returned dollars to you each year. I expect to add to these new employees incrementally. as we address the backlog of cases, which we do have a backlog, and to review the office. This request is what our office needs. It's not anything except what we have to do the work that we're allotted. And I appreciate your consideration of this request. Any questions? Hey.
I do have office space. My understanding is the DA's offices are running out of space.
Yes.
Very limited right now, if not at all. If these 14 positions are granted or part of it, how are you planning to house these individuals?
In the short term, I don't know. You know, we will likely put people in what are designated closet areas. We may double up some offices. We may put people in hallways. I do not know. You're correct. Every single office space in our area is built out.
Okay.
But we have to get the work done, and I can't do the work without the people.
David, is there additional space over there for the DA's office?
Not yet.
We moved a lot of district clerk stuff out of there and different ones. Why not?
We are currently in the design phase of installing inmate holding behind the old civil courts on the 7th and 8th floors on the south side to convert those to criminal courts, so they have a place to put the inmates. Once we finish that, probably in January or February, March, sometime of next year, we're going to ask the two remaining, I think one of them's a district court and one of them's a county court, from the 5th floor on the north side, to ask them to politely move to one of those other new courts, which will free up space on the north 5th floor. And that will help solve some immediate problems. Also, we plan to move the lawyer's lounge up a floor. So, as part of the master plan that we developed and was presented to you back in August of 2014, the district attorney's office will have the entire north side of the 5th floor. We're just not there yet.
When do you anticipate this happening?
The courts, we're going to ask those two courts to move the first quarter, second quarter of next year, and then we'll have to see how we move the lawyer's lounge up a floor. That will allow the space to be available. Then we'll have to renovate it. We'll be back to ask for funds to renovate those areas, probably in FY 18 or possibly 19 to do that.
So it's not going to happen within this budget year?
That's correct, Commissioner.
So back to, where do you plan on putting them?
I'll put them in the hallways, because we have to do the work. We have to do the work. I'll put them in the halls. My obligation is to do this work, and we will do the work.
Although I may be favorably disposed to much or most of this request, I feel we probably ought to be consistent and put it in the parking lot to come back to when we consider all new position requests. That would be my motion.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And Sharon, could I see you after we take a break? Thank you.
Your Honor, let me ask you a question. We have lunch ready for you. Would you like to work through the remainder of the judiciary first before we break for lunch, or would you like to have lunch now?
So to go through, that means we've got district clerk, county clerk, domestic relations, jury services, special judges, and then courts and judiciary. correct?
That's correct.
And
Let's go.
Okay.
correct me if I'm wrong, but the only budget that would be to be determined is felony? The others are okay?
That's the way I see it. DA
Aside
civil.
from these 14 jobs,
They're all-
included in the budget. We have no objection to the zeroing out of our capital request.
Okay, so the other cost centers being admin, investigations, and civil are okay.
move approval of the DA's various budgets,
With the exception of felony.
with the exception of these 14 positions, which we've already put on the to-be-considered list.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I want to be sure I clarify. If I look at page 128, the new positions there imply 15.
Yes, sir, and I apologize, that was in my notes and I did not address it. We originally asked for 15 people, one new attorney for juvenile to deal with the number of cases there, but we have reallocated positions and are withdrawing that because we wanted to have the smallest, cleanest ask that we could.
Okay. So then the motion before us is to approve all the other areas with the exception of the criminal DA criminal, which is on page 128, or begins on page 128. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Wilder?
Good evening, Judge, members of the court, and staff. Ms. Zeidman is here to, the court pleases. Could we hand out a little handout to you? This is a synopsis of transaction volume and registry of the court cases. I do want to take, Mr. Mangus has the balance of them. I do want to take just a moment to thank the Budget Office for working with us well over the last several years, including this year. We do have one position that I would ask the court's consideration on, which is an accounting position. The dollars involved here are $60,000. It's a grade 17. That would include all of the add-ons according to the budget document. So that's the total price. Just a few brief remarks before we get into this handout. The registry of the court, as the auditor put in her budget, or rather in a recent audit, are not county money. It's money that the judges control through their court orders and that the district clerk and the county clerk are required to administer under Chapter 117 of the Local Government Code. These court orders are not something we can just put on hold. This has to be dealt with promptly, and our volume has increased. Currently, we have about $25 million under investment, with about a $29 million separate collateral account that also has to be managed. We have 6 people working in the department. That's total. That's not in the registry area. That's the total number of full-time people in our accounting department. We rely heavily upon our accounting department for training and other departments. As you know, we have deputies in 4 different buildings. And the accounting that court clerks do is very complicated. And that is one of the large duties that we have. We have 5 different entities that could audit us at any time. The state controller, the Office of Court Administration, the Attorney General, our own internal audit, and the county's external auditors. Usually about 3 of those show up in our office in any given year, some of them multiple times. So when we get down to it, we have a relatively small difference with the budget office of 1 position. As you can see, our transaction volume has increased substantially. I'll get into this in more detail if you have questions about it. The number of our accounts stands at close to 6,000, and we're not finished with this fiscal year yet. We don't believe that this is a spike. That's why we gave you two different time periods, a broader time period and a smaller time period. A lot of this is driven by the cost that the banks charge people to hold their money. As you know, the bank's fees have gone up and up and up. Regrettably, ours have not. In fact, they've gone down because our interest rates have gone down, and our fees are paid to 10% of the interest. So obviously that becomes an attractive place for the courts to park the money. You look at our overall volume, with the credit card transactions increasing, we had e-filing, jump those up, of course, and now we have criminal e-filing about to be pushed upon us, has to be in place by next July the 1st. These credit card transactions require a great deal of resolution on individual problems. These court orders are very complex. They require back and forth with the court, and we just do the best we can to do it, but we got to do it. This particular position will assist us in that and to continue our ability to comply with the law, with the orders of the court, with the requirements and the recommendations of the auditor's office, and with this county's tradition of good customer service. So I stand ready to answer your questions.
So your request is to add one new position?
One new position.
Grade
17 would be our proposed. We haven't done the job description yet, but that would be our proposed. We think that's what it'll grade out at.
And this person would do what?
This person would work with the current person that's working in the registry of the court area on those 6,000 accounts and all the in and out that happens on that money. I might add, registry of the court fund, what are they? Well, it's everything from the 50 Shades of Grey case, where we're holding $2 million in cash and 2 deeds in Australia, down to minor children that get a court award and the court tells me to take the money. We have people on contractual disputes. Recently had $6.4 million in a development that I'm sure all of you know that the title company interpled into my office, and I'm sitting there holding the money till they've now dispersed it, but that was a couple of years ago. We have cash bonds. All the cash bonds go in the registry of the court, and there's a number of other things, but it is essentially court-related money activity.
Tom, explain to me, I guess, we're not looking, for example, on the number of transactions. We got a comparison for 05 to 16, and then we have 12 to 16, and then we have 10 to 16, and 12 to, and then we have 14 to 16. What's the reasoning behind the different years you used over there in the fiscal year column?
An excellent question that a good CPA would always ask, why you take it a different slice. First of all, we just wanted to take a snapshot of it. The transactions are just that. It's the in and out. So we took a broader, arbitrary figure, and I told staff to take a shorter figure because it's not just a 1-year spike. That's all I was trying to show there. We could certainly produce some other figures to show 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever you might require. But that was just an arbitrary to show a long-term increase as well as a shorter-term increase. The number of accounts, we did the same thing.
That looks to be consistent. It's about a 9% increase, average annual increase.
That would be
average annual
probably
increase.
close. Plus, in the tax department, our tax cases have gone up substantially, and all the excess tax proceeds we hold in the registry of the court as well.
The number of transactions appear to have gone up. If you look at the 5, that's about a 7% annual increase, and 12, from 12 forward, it seems like it's been down a little bit, only 5%. Then 9% for your number of accounts, and your credit cards transactions have gone up about 11%, I guess, and the e-filings have gone up about 9%.
Plus, they'll go up some more as we get into criminal e-filing, because the lawyers have to use credit cards on those filings, if there's any money attached to it. How much, we don't know yet.
So before e-filing, you have to handle it manually, your staff. The filings still have to be filed.
They do.
But they have to do it manually.
But we had a mechanism in place, remote filing, that essentially accomplished the same purpose.
Right, so electronic
It was
filing
old
should...
fax filing technology, but it was all through a computer. I put that in 1995.
So shouldn't electronic filing be less burdensome to your staff?
No.
Instead of manual?
It's actually.
It doesn't?
It's actually, that was what they sold that vendor. The vendor sold the Supreme Court on when they ordered it, it would save money. It does not save money.
So what I'm hearing here is an oxymoron here, right? You have a manual process.
No,
So
we
by
didn't.
implementing electronic filing, we actually increase the
Yeah,
burden.
because the call volume went up. The county clerk and I have traded numbers on this. I'll let Mary Louise speak for herself. But we didn't save a dime on it.
Right.
And I already had in place a way to deliver the court filings electronically. We had a bunch of subscribers and we had a revenue stream on it. As the auditor mentioned, the revenue stream that we had is coming to an end because we can only capture the hardware, the upfront sunk costs. We can't put any personnel in there. That would be part of the legislative proposal that we would hope that we could get a one-time fee. All of the $30 fee that we collect, that goes to the Office of Court Administration to pay that vendor. We don't get to keep a dime of it here in the county, never did.
Which oftentimes when we're asked, why don't we run government like a business? Because most of the legislatures are attorneys and they don't want to pay for it.
I would say that I have regular complaints from attorneys about paying for things.
Okay.
Up to and including Friday.
So this would fall into the one more employee, so we put it in the to be determined deal at the end of the deal.
And Debbie, how much does this cost?
$60,730. Oops. Sorry, I lost the screen.
I do have some accounting staff here, should you have any other questions.
Move approval of Mr. Wilder's budget with the, moving the one employee that he wants to the, as you refer to it as the parking lot.
Be considered.
The parking lot.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Tom.
County clerk.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Domestic relations. I believe that they're satisfied.
Satisfied.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Jury services.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Right. Yeah.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Special judges.
No issues.
They're happy.
Well, it's a budget we prepare.
Huh?
It's a budget we prepare.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Courts and judiciary.
Again, a budget that we prepare. There was a question earlier about the increase in council fees. By and large, they're about $600,000, but the The real bird on the wire in that whole scenario is how many capital murder trials actually go to trial. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a bad analogy. They're actually up.
So capital murder trials usually always go to trial.
Well, no, they don't always. No.
Okay.
Actually, total increase is less than $500,000 because there's some decreases in some of the county criminal courts budgets.
You're right.
Just checking you on it.
We don't have a motion or a second.
Move approval.
Second.
We now have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Lunchtime.
This next one might not get a motion.
Huh?
Members, your
This
lunch
next
is
one might not get a
That's
motion.
why we're going to lunch. I want y'all in a better mood after lunch than you are right now.
We can't eliminate the county judge's office, can we? JD, can we eliminate the county judge's office?
Eliminate the budget.
We can eliminate the budget, I don't know about the position. A lot of these judges
Yeah, put him in
have
the
to
closet.
handle trials.
Okay. Welcome back. First one out of the box is myself.
County Judge.
I'll move approval. I have no changes to what she's recommended. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
County Administrator satisfied with their budget?
What page are you?
We're now on page 149.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Non-departmental?
Obviously, we prepare that sort of recommended. I just want to say one more thing about professional services. One thing that's included in professional services for next year is a staffing study for the jail.
Wow.
Staffing study for the jail.
How much?
I think it's $350,000.
What?
And of course, if we don't use it, then it becomes available.
Hope we can find some savings there.
So we're recommending both non-departmental for road and bridge and the general fund, the next two, as well as debt service, next three.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of like everybody else. That's kind of a little, I was thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 70,000.
That's exactly where I was.
Because I thought that's what we talked about many moons ago when we recommended doing this.
We plugged a number, whatever the cost is, if it's less, tremendously less, then that'll just free up some additional funds for you all at that time.
We need additional funds now.
We have a second, motion and a second.
Mm-hmm.
I heard you move it, but I didn't hear a second.
I have a question. The 2 million plus that we allocated for the Canton Appraisal District,
Yes?
what is the percentage of that into their total operating cost, do you know?
I would have to pull their documentation to give you a good idea of that, but
But is there a percentage that we?
it's really all based on everybody's final tax rate and their appraised values.
So there's a formula, right?
There's a formula.
Okay.
I probably have that document and I can forward it to you to look at.
That would be great. Thank you.
We don't approve their request, we approve their demand.
Correct.
I would like to offer a substitute motion, please.
We ain't got a second to the one we got right now.
I have a,
You haven't declared it dead, so.
No, just a second. We'll hear your alternate after, I guess, Commissioner Fickus. Well, or do you want to hear, what's your alternate?
To approve the non-departmental budget with the exception of the salary study for the jail, which I would put on the parking lot.
Okay.
Who was that staff study? Where did we get our estimated cost for
You know,
that?
let me take a step back. I don't know if it was 300, we plugged a particular number in there.
Is your speaker on?
Yes, it is.
He's just not anywhere near it.
We put a particular number in there, and we need to go back and find out exactly how much that is.
That's why I want to put it on the parking lot, Mr. Manius.
Hold on.
I got
Go ahead and answer your question while he's.
Okay, Debbie,
Yes, sir.
I need $500 for historical commission.
Okay,
Could you do that?
I think
They're
so.
they need some mailing money, some mail money and some printing money to do some things that, for enhancing their presence
Okay.
as a organization.
Do we want their presence enhanced as an organization?
Well, sure we do. They're fine, fine people.
So is there any reason why in particular you're bringing this up at this point in time?
Because it's on this
in
budget.
here. It's in non-departmental.
It's in this.
Well, good. I'm glad at least I can figure, kind of follow where you're going now.
Well, okay, it's under Tarrant County Historical Commission, $3,500. I want to move it to $4,000.
All the way. I guess.
I'll include that in my motion if I ever get a second.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what, let's put it in the parking lot.
Let's do what?
Will you say second?
Second. I'll second.
Okay, our
JD
motion
can
and our
second.
second right now, as I understand it, is to increase historical commission by $500 from $3,500 to $4,000 because he wants to mail something. And then we're gonna put into the parking lot whatever the amount that they come up with is on this jail study
In the parking lot.
in the parking lot.
That means we're going to consider it later.
We're either gonna approve it or you're gonna bury it under some asphalt.
Let's vote on it.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so debt service,
Uh-oh. I am so very sorry. It's 150,000.
Well, that sounds a whole lot better than $350.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Do you still want it in the
We know
parking
you're
lot?
still on drugs.
That's still twice what I thought it'd cost.
We'll leave it on the parking lot and take it off later.
debt service.
It is, that is one of those things where it is what it is.
Move approval.
Which one?
Debt service.
So we approve the non-departmental for both the general fund and road and bridge, right?
Yes, yes, we did.
Yes, we did. Isn't that why was your motion, right, Mr. Brooks?
Absolutely.
I'm sure it was. And we have the debt service, we have a motion and a second.
Second.
He wasn't the one that made the motion, was he?
No, I would.
Motion passes unanimously.
County auditor.
We're good.
We gotta get back up to speed here, guys. We're close to the line.
You're good?
She's good.
Yes, sir.
Move approval.
Second.
Now we're rolling. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Budget risk.
We're satisfied. With your own budget.
Really?
It's up 385. I guess I could work on
Who
that.
reviews your budget request?
2K.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Tax assessment.
I'm good. That's debatable.
Did you lose your tie between this morning and this afternoon?
You tie?
You didn't have one this
This
afternoon?
morning.
Actually, my budget is so tight, I can't afford ties anymore.
It's so tight, he tied it and it broke.
You have a motion?
I have a motion.
Second.
And now I have a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Elections.
They're satisfied.
Well, I'm the only one sitting up here who needs an election, so I move approval.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
IT.
That's because they haven't got a primary next year.
We ought to be able to cut 2 or 3 million out of this budget.
Good afternoon, court members. The IT budget, we are happy with.
I had a question about the IT budget.
You ain't got a motion
I'm
yet,
not
but just,
sure.
I'm overproof.
Well, I'll second so I can ask my
I
question.
move approval.
it's never stopped us anybody before, so let's.
That's true.
Got a
One
new
might
procedure.
think you
We're
were
having a second
discriminating
before the
against
motion now.
No, he moved.
No, I moved. I was real quiet about it.
Okay.
I don't even know where to find it. What page is the IT budget on?
It begins on page 162.
Under strategic projects.
What page is that on?
I'm looking for it. Commissioner, would you show me where that is?
The IT strategic project is listed under, is it capital?
Yes. Page 160. One what? 165.
I still don't see what I'm looking for.
Probably under capital, maybe?
Project Management Office. That's not it. What page, Deb?
165.
Where are we, where are you?
Well, I don't know where you included in the actual budget of the IT department, but under page 241 of the IT Project Management Office, it listed a recommended of $850,000 versus the request of
$1,006,000.
$1,006,000, $1,007,000.
Correct.
So
what's the difference? What'd you cut out and why?
First of all, I believe that was dealt with the strategic projects piece. And quite frankly, I don't believe that we will be able to do all of those projects. And so that was the reason that we reduced it, what, by 850,000? About
2,850.
I guess the real question is, how did you determine which ones would be going forward and which ones would not?
That would still be the responsibility of the IT steering committee to make that prioritization, as we've done in the past.
have we ranked, we prioritized those projects already, right, Chris?
Right.
Yes, sir. The IT steering committee voted on a prioritized list. And what GK is saying is that the funding of $850K that has been recommended, we would take that back to the IT steering committee to determine where to allocate those funds.
To either reprioritize and or
draw a line.
or just draw a line and say this is how much we do this year.
We would come forward with some suggestions to the IT steering committee. The automated committee would need to provide advice.
Was the $850,000 number based upon some rational construct, or was it just pulled out of the air?
It was an effort for us to balance the budget.
It still provides significant funding.
Okay, then.
Sounds kind of like pulled out of there.
It sounds that way to me.
But do you have a list of those strategic projects that the IT steering committee vetted and so forth, the ranking? Do you remember?
Well, what if we did this? I mean, it's about a reduction of about 800,000, it looks like.
Yeah.
And whether we park it or whether we approve it, and then y'all go back, we can always reopen it and readdress it. Maybe
I don't have any problem if it was based on a determination of which projects we had the capacity to do and which ones we don't have the capacity to do. But to just cut in a place.
Well, and that's what I'm suggesting, that y'all as the ones that are most involved with that particular thing, go back and look at what the impact of this $800,000 reduction would be, and see if you think that's something that's.
Well, let me put forth this idea to the court, and well, not really an idea, but a challenge, and maybe we can come up with a solution. One of the challenges that I personally observe is we have a lot of department heads getting involved in the identification of strategic projects, and usually it takes 6-7 months. And then IT has to work with each and every one of those departments. It takes multiple meetings, expanding a lot of time, okay? And then they come up with these strategic projects, estimated cost, the scope, what would it take, how much money is needed, what is it for, does it align with the strategic goal of the county, and so forth. By the time we are done with the process, I would venture to say we expanded hundreds of hours of man-hour and time into these. And we'll come up with a list of projects of 20 projects or so that may amount up to anywhere 10, 15, sometimes $5 million. The amount is completely undeterminable. And then when we come forward to the court, and the funding allocation is $850,000. Okay, so we expanded all that time and effort and energy. So is there a better way to do this? Is there a better way? Is it maybe more effective if the court looked at the budget and say, this year we're going to allocate up to $1 million for strategic IT projects based on the following criteria. So that way the IT steering committee, we would go to work and being able to come up with measurement and criteria to keep it within that number of $1 million. Instead of, it also has the effect of getting the department's heads hope up. When the IT steering committee go through the project, and your project rank number 3, for example, they get really excited, everybody expectation goes up and so forth, and then when it comes to the allocation process, we don't have enough funding, so you out. What that means is next year they have to resubmit the project again, go through the whole process again, okay, and then we would face the same situation again. So that is the problem. So I don't know if the court would maybe provide some direction.
Why don't you start with that number 3 project you cut and make them number 1 next year?
I mean, I certainly think that's a possibility, but I think the reason you go through the routine and everybody gets to submit what their deal is because then the committee evaluates what's the most important. Well, next year, the number 3 project, somebody else may submit something or something may happen that makes that number 3 project
number 10 again.
Number 10. And I think what this does is it says to the committee as a court, this is how much money we got to spend. You've gone through your list. We go down until we get to that number. And so we can talk about what the next one would have been and determine whether or not we think. But I mean, that's the reason you prioritize. And I wouldn't want us to go through. I kind of think that's y'all's job to figure out these are the priorities. And then wherever the cut line is, it's.
So, Chris, do you remember the top 3 projects that have been identified? Do you have it? I don't.
This year, the process this year, I have a second here, based on the rankings and the process that the IT Steering Committee approved, the top 3 were pretrial specialty courts. There was the DRO, Child Support Information Systems, and case management.
So how many are you gonna get with 850,000?
Your Honor, I couldn't do the math right here. We were hoping that once the court approves what amount of funding they want to allocate, then we can go through that exercise and then give some recommendations.
Well, the 303 is up there. I mean, so it's not the child support deal. It's the new strategic project requests. It says out there to be determined by IT. So has it not already been determined in that request? Or is it, we're gonna figure out what kind of money you're giving us and then we're gonna decide?
Would you repeat your question, sir?
I think if I can remember it. This line item that was originally requested is $1,663,000, says new strategic project requests. And then in parentheses, it says to be determined by IT. That's you. So it went from 1.6 to 850. So are you telling me that that list was not already prioritized?
That list is prioritized.
Okay, so then if you take that list, where's the list? You got the list right there?
Yes, I'm just not sure if I have enough copies for you all.
Well, let me see a list and I'll pass it around. You got a whole bunch.
I think he has enough for them, Helen.
Okay, so the first thing off the top here, let's take that number, the 1917-300 doesn't quite tie the 1970, but let's just take this list and see the second one down, the 303. I'm just trying to do a little bit of checking here. The 303 is already in the upper number. It wasn't cut. It was approved.
Correct.
Now, is that first one, the pretrial management judiciary, that funding request was 600?
I think they have it.
And you gave them 600. Is that up above that? Is that in that number up on virtual desktop, or is that something else?
No.
Okay, so we're just gonna assume that all of these are in that IT management office.
That's right.
Okay, so if I'm looking for, well, I don't get much past that first one.
No. And I think that's a state mandated project. That's why it scored number 1.
That's a state mandated project. And
So then the case, well, no, wait a minute
That's an
though.
unfunded mandate.
No,
That's 600. Well, yeah. You get 50,000 on case management. You get 18, you get 28.
who decided to fund this money?
So you're getting a little bit closer.
these numbers don't even match.
So it looks to me like we can go all the way down to E15, and E15 isn't quite fully funded.
And the existing strategic project request, that's a child support there, that's $303,500.
It's a year 2 funding.
And
That's
the
funded
jail
separately.
It's funded separately.
Funded separately.
Yes, sir.
By whom?
In the budget,
Is it grant?
Yeah, it's a line right above that.
no.
Right, but who make the decision? I mean, shouldn't that be,
The child support project is ongoing project. This is year 2
Okay.
of child support, so that's why
It's a
it was pretty
continuation.
much
it's a
automatic.
continuation, okay?
So if you take all the other items, the 600, the 50, the 18, the 28.8, that comes to 696,000. So that means you have 104 of the 180 for electronic signatures.
We have continued to refine these numbers even since after the IT steering committee voted, as we identified specific solutions to get more concise numbers. And so what actually made it into the budget ultimately for the new asks was 1.5 million. So let's look at the 850 as against a 1.5 million. And even after that, we drove down the numbers again by about 150, 200,000. So I just want to give that little bit of context.
So this number is not updated to the 1.5?
No, sir. This is the original voted line. What you want to go with is what is in the budget.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And that'll be 1.5.
Without having talked to the IT steering committee, I would say we've got to at least get through electronic signatures.
And that seems like that you're only short about 76,000 to get there.
$76,000.
Well, and from what I understand on electronic signatures, there's very little capital involved in that project. Pretty much that whole 180,000 is ongoing operating costs. So if that's something we're interested in pursuing, then maybe IT could take a closer look at their budget for some recommended transfers to see that happen.
Well, and what I hear Chris saying is this 1,000,009 less than 303 has that would be 1,000,006, and you're saying you've already cut that down to at least 1,000,005.
That is correct.
So
That's the number
these numbers may not be quite there. You may be able to get through electronic. So I guess I would just say we go forward with the 850. You go back and figure out on those numbers down to electronic signatures if 850 gets us there. So the electronic signatures, I hear everybody saying we got to do that. So we just need to see how we get down to that 850.
Don't look at me, I don't have my slide rule.
Okay, so does the court want us, the IT steering committee, to continue the same process? Okay, or would you like to consider allocating X number of dollars on an annual basis, and then we would work within the confines of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I hear what you're asking. It's hard for us to determine now what next year's going to be like. And that's the reason, I mean, maybe we can give you a little bit more of a heads up, or we can try to look at it beginning in March, but I mean.
I understand Commissioner Wynn's point. This does take an awful lot of man hours, not only on the part of each department to put together their strategic requests, but then it takes all of the county's department heads, and those are very expensive man hours, to go through these requests, go through the business case, and to prioritize these projects. And even GK and Debbie sit on this committee. It's extremely resource intensive.
And I believe there have been conversations with IT that there's no doubt that the process is not perfect, far from perfect, and that we're always willing to listen to other suggestions they might have to remove or eliminate some of that burden.
Well, project management offices, that whole construct is considered a best practice in the industry. I don't know how we could, unless we're going to invent some new best practice. That's above my pay grade when it comes to IT. I think it is what it is. We'll have to work with the 850 and see if we can't get down through that critical number that the two of us seem to be agreeing on anyway.
And that's the issue. We'll have to figure that out and then maybe report back to the court on whether we should streamline it somehow.
Yeah, but I'd be inclined to not parking lot this, to accept the 850 and go on.
What?
Another question I have, if I may, the tax share portion of a little over $2 million allocated under the IT app development and support. I'm wondering if that amount should be separated from the IT app development department or cost center, if you will, and give it an independent and separated, a separate cost center, so that way we can track the movement of that amount. Because this tech share is really an independent project from the IT department, even though the IT department is supposed to provide some support to it, but the decision is not on the CIOs and his leadership team. It's rather is made by CUC.
I mean, that's something that I don't, I mean, it's kind of almost like a Microsoft type of a deal. Because it's kind of like we've got a contract for the systems that CUC or TechShare is running for us. We just happen to be part of the developers of those projects, and we're continuing to develop, I guess, courts, prosecutor, we've pretty much got implemented now. Juvenile, we have implemented now. So a lot of that is, I guess, M&O as well as, or is this, GK, is this the development part of it, or is this?
And courts has already been developed. We're now in the implementation. So in this year, we have an implementation cost of courts. Also, in the past, when we had development, that was a capital item. But we move into an M&O structure now, and an M&O is an operational item, so it no longer comes out of non-dead capital, it comes out of general fund.
So this 2.2 is development, or is that M&O?
Chris, I'll need to ask you.
Page 241.
Might I suggest
There's some
that this particular issue is not a budget issue? It's in that it's not going to affect the dollars that we are spending one way or the other. It's a categorization issue.
Right.
What you call it on the balance sheet, where you put it in the budget. So could we talk about that in another forum? And
Sure. Now, do we have a motion and a second on this?
No.
Yes, we did.
I remember you seconded it so you could talk about it.
Yeah, I guess I did.
It's one of the few things I remember about today. And I think we've got everything in there right now. Do y'all have and you're clear on where we're going on the 850?
850.
Okay.
850.
850 is clear.
Vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Human Resources. Thank you.
We accept budget's recommendation.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Purchasing.
You're not standing, and I assume that means you agree?
Repeat you.
That would be Georgia, not Arkansas.
Yes.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Facilities.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
We're now going to go to Road and Bridge, Precinct 1.
We're satisfied. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Precinct 2.
We are also satisfied. Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Precinct 3.
We're satisfied and would approve a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Precinct 4.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion is second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Transportation.
And just to follow up, we'll follow up with the Central Garage regarding the lighting issue for the constables at a later time.
Thank you.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion is second. Please vote. Motion passes
Look
unanimously.
what's
Central
next.
Garage.
A blank screen.
We drew,
What about Central Garage?
it's in transportation.
Transportation.
You wanna talk about the light package?
He said they would talk
I'll
about
follow
it.
up.
Okay, thank you.
We
All
need
right.
some more
I
information.
wasn't listening.
It's been grand here. Would you like to tell us what we do next?
Just want to remind the court that there'll be a standing item on all of our regular agendas as relates to budget-related issues, so that it's properly agendized for you all to talk about it in court.
Has anybody kept a running tally of how much we put on the parking lot here?
I did not,
About 1.6 million.
probably.
The veteran is 64,240. The county criminal court admin is 100,000 for FY17, and then going forward, it's gonna be about 150,000. And then the criminal district attorney request is about 1.3 million. And the district clerk request is about 60,730.
So what's the total of all those?
Roughly about 1.6 or so million, I think.
I didn't run the total.
Under 2 million.
It's about 1.7.
1.6, 1.7.
1.7, around that area.
And that will come out of the $5 million undesignated if we decided to move forward, right?
Assuming there's no other changes in the revenue estimates, that would be correct.
Okay. So that would leave us only about $3 million or so in undesignated for FY17.
That would be correct,
That would be correct, okay.
which happens to be equal to the mosquito spray number that public health threw out.
Right, and then cross our finger, we don't have any more.
Yeah.
We have several weeks we're going to be working on that list with the court, to see if we can refine it and see if there's any other revenue that may become available. But with that, Your Honor, that's all we have today.
When do we anticipate some new figures from TAD? Or do we?
We will?
Certified
We don't know right now. What we can do is maybe call TAD and see what their numbers look like.
What about 96%?
96?
Because we may get enough to cover this shortfall.
That's why you're correct, Commissioner. Well, that's what we said. We've got a couple, 3 weeks now that we'll be looking at other revenues, other expenditures, and see if we can get, come up with a recommendation that will satisfy the majority of the court.
Do your magic.
Your Honor, that's all we have at this time.
How would we deal with that?
Adjourn.
Conflicting situation.